Thank you.
From Dan to Daniel, we got a trend. So Daniel, let me get some room here, was fortunate enough to start his real estate career immediately after university, starting out with residential, but always having his passion in investment real estate. Daniel was fortunate enough to learn from local developers while helping them acquire, sell multifamily land assembly development sites throughout the Cambie corridor craze. Gaining the analytical insight from their medium to large scale operations, he had the pleasure to be involved with investing companies in repositioning rental apartment buildings and mixed use buildings. Daniel now spends significant amounts of time in the industrial real estate space, assisting small business to end their tenant life and starting their own industrial workspace, acquiring industrial development sites for developers and creating Strata Warehouse. Welcome, Daniel, and I will find someone that I need to mute. Come on board.
Thank you very much. Always glad to be a part of this whole event. It's been amazing last year. It's our 5th event. Thank you, Roland. So today I want to talk about a current client that I'm working on right now, and I've been seeing a trend of this happening more and more recently. So it's a client between 25, 30 years old. Their parents are giving them some money to start their investment life. So these people are busy with working, starting a family. So they gave me a couple of criteria that I think that a lot of people in the real estate industry here, a lot of realtors is going to resonate with. So they tell me that they want to find something under $1 million. They don't want to manage the property, and they don't want to do any repairs. They don't want to pay for the utilities of these tenants, and they want to increase their rent, but they don't want to follow the very minimal residential rental increase that we've been controlled with. So these are the criteria they gave me. So I went out and looked for different types of investments for them, and then I realized that we can look into strata units, a lot of industrials. With these strata industrial units, this kind of fits what they're looking for. The tenants will pay for their own improvements and pay for most of the maintenance, except for roofing or exterior big stuff like that, the foundations and structural stuff, which the strata will take care of. These are also triple net commercial leases. So the landlord is not paying for a lot of the repairs, a lot of the ongoing holding costs like the strata fee. And then these are also mid to long-term tenants. So it's very clear, carefree for the landlord. So when the client tells me that they want to keep it under $1 million, and I tell them that it's hard to find something like that, we in fact did find something for them like that. Here's an example of a property that is already sold in Richmond. So it's not very far away from where most people here who are from Vancouver are living. It's around 10-15 minute drive away. So this is the case study I want to talk to you guys about today. This is a unit that has sold already. But I want to give you guys an example of this to let you guys know what's possible. That's not in multifamily, but in industrial. So this unit sold for $955. And the situation with this one is that it is currently being rented under market value. So right now, at the time of the sale, they were only collecting $2,800 per month, and is on a gross lease. So for people who's not familiar with this, gross lease means that they're paying one lump sum of rent, and then the landlord will then use that rent to cover their mortgages, their holding costs such as the maintenance fee, the utilities, and all that stuff. So it's not the best scenario for the current tenant. So they're also, when we do the calculation, they're paying around $13.30 per square feet in total. The market rent for the area is actually a base rent of $16. So there's a significant increase there, and if you rent this unit out today, you'll be able to get around $4,400, while the additional rent is paid by the tenant. So we'll look for opportunities like this to see if there's a way that we can, have the original commercial tenant leave, ask for a vacant possession, and then we find a new tenant that is able to pay market rent, and we have them pay the holding cost. We go to the next slide, please. So my presentation today is a bit more on the analytical side. It's more calculation based. So my client, for this one, they had around $500,000 down. So they don't need to have a huge loan to value ratio. So we did this calculation for them where they are borrowing based on the income that we're going to be getting at market rent. So based on what the banks have told me, they're able to borrow around 10 to 12 times the net operating income. So when we did that calculation, we realized they can get around a $485,000 mortgage on this property. And after all the closing costs on the left-hand side, the conveyancing, the property transfer tax, and a GST, they'll be able to acquire this property with 50% financing and around 50% down payment. I also broke down the mortgage payments here on the screen. So they're getting around a 2.5% interest rate, which is great for a commercial property right now. And these are what their mortgage payment is going to be like. So between the accepted offer and a completion date, what we typically like to do or try to negotiate is for us to, number one, have access to the property. Because throughout that period of time, we're going to be trying to look for a new tenant to replace this old current one who's paying under market rent. So we'll want to get access to the properties, and we'll also want to be authorized to market the property for lease. So let's go to the next slide, please. So we broke down all the numbers here for everybody. So the total monthly cost on the left-hand side on the top. So typically when you own a strata building, a strata unit, you're going to be paying for a mortgage. You're going to be having the strata fee. You're going to be paying for property tax, which is divided up to 12 months. And you're also going to be paying for landlord insurance. The tenant will have their own insurance, but we also have a landlord insurance. So the monthly total cost, holding cost for this is around $3,200. And then you see on the first, the second, third, and fourth expense, we get to recapture that in the additional rent. So we actually transfer that cost into additional rent, and the tenants are paying for it. So if you see the top right-hand area, you're gonna see the monthly base rent of $3,300 or so, and then the $1,000 is also going to come from a tenant. So they're actually paying for all these costs. In total, you're going to be collecting around $4,400 a month, and then you're going to be netting the base rent. After paying a mortgage every month, you're netting around $1,200. So when we're able to negotiate a deal where we can get rid of the old tenant prior to completion date, I can only see this happening with commercial deals now, whether it might be a retail tenant or an industrial tenant or an office tenant that we're able to do this. With a residential property, it's a bit more difficult right now because of all the tenancy acts, all those issues coming together with COVID and everything. So it's much easier for industrial properties to do this. So if we convert it over to, if we multiply everything by 12, which I have on the bottom area of the Excel sheet, in total, before financing, we're going to be getting a $40,000 income from this property. That's net to you guys, net to the investors. If you were to get around a 50% mortgage on this property, you're going to be netting around $14,000 a year. So that's quite a nice income for a carefree, renovation-free investment. The tenants will take care of all the renovation. The tenants will take care of all the improvements, all the upkeeping of it, and paying all the bills on it. The only issue with this is that sometimes when you have a tenant like this in a commercial building, you're going to be having to provide them with a rent-free period, or what they call a fixturing period. So during that time, the tenant will only pay for the additional rent, so their holding cost is still taken care of. They just won't be able to pay the basic rent for you to cover your financing. One other thing that you guys can consult all your accountants is that the interest that you pay for on these mortgage payments monthly, you're able to write that off as well. So you're really just paying for the basic principal pay down of your mortgage. So let's go to the next slide. So why are we looking into industrial real estate? It wasn't this hot a couple years ago. So throughout the pandemic, in the last year or so, we've seen the growth in commercial industrial real estate sector month by month. We've seen positive increases on it. We still see the drop in vacancy rates. So we're finding that a lot of storefronts, a lot of small business owners, they are converting they're changing up their offices needs. So a lot of them are shrinking their office space, they're shrinking their retail space, and they're looking into an industrial property where they can have a smaller office space, small showroom, and all their warehousing will be for their storage area. So we've been seeing a lot of businesses going in that direction. And because of that, we have both owner users and we have investors competing for the same inventory. And there's not a lot of industrial inventory that we have around the lower mainland. So we've seen an appreciation in the price and kind of like a contraction of the cap rate. So right now we're seeing great growth in industrial real estate. And I think that all the investors on this forum here should look into this sector as well. So the strength of this type of investment is
2
that
minutes, Daniel.
you're able to get into a industrial asset type with a small amount of money compared to a lot of other asset types. The low vacancy rate and high demand is just going to help the lease rate go up. And also because it's triple net, so it's a carefree lease for a majority of the landlords. The biggest weakness that we're finding in these type of investments is to locate and to vet and screen these tenants. We're looking for somebody who has a established business who's looking for a change in location. So we got to spend more time looking for a tenant like that. It's not as easy as residential, where you have like a lineup of people trying to lease your space, your bedrooms. The other weakness is that we have to provide a fixturing period for them to renovate their units. So if it's their need, typically a 1 to 3 month period is what we're seeing in common right now. It's possible for where the opportunity comes in is that we're looking for under market rents, just like what we're doing in residential, and we're trying to get it financed using the current rent. And then after we re-tenant it, we see a lot of our clients, they get a refinance and to increase the mortgage amount and pull out equity from there. And then right now we're seeing the threats that we're seeing is that what if we have a commercial tenant that doesn't pay rent because their business is going down or things are slowing down. So in a commercial lease, we can set up our own rules where we can have them vacate the property after a shorter period of time. And also to, we can have provisions in there where we can change the locks. So it's a lot more strict compared to residential. So that's my presentation. And then if any questions, reach out to me. I'll love to talk to any of you guys. And then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.